Welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum presentation. I'm Christina Manthe, President of the Jeffco League. We are proud to offer this in conjunction with the City of Arvada. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure that everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy, education, and litigation at local, state, and national levels. The goal of the forum is to present the views of the candidates in a fair, nonpartisan setting so that you, the voters, can make an informed decision. All candidates whose names will appear on the ballots were invited to participate in this forum. This forum is being recorded. At this time, I would like to introduce Mark Kobrick, our forum moderator. Mark is a former broadcast reporter with 9 News, KUSA, and an experienced moderator of these forums. Mark?
Thanks, Christina, and this is the 2023 Arvada City Council Candidates Forum. The views expressed here will be those of the candidates, not the views of the Jefferson County League of Women Voters or of the City of Arvada. The Jeffco League of Women Voters has provided all of the questions for the candidates. The League takes no stand in support of or opposition to the candidates. Our forum is divided into 4 sections, one for each of the 2 city council district races, and one for the at-large race, and one for the mayor's race, and each forum is about a half an hour long. This is the forum for the mayor's race in the city of Arvada. The mayor runs at large, therefore all residents will have an opportunity to vote for the next mayor. There are 2 candidates in the race. Let's meet them now in the order that they will appear on the ballot: John Marriott and Lauren Simpson. Thank you both for participating tonight and for being part of our forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement. I will ask 5 questions, and each candidate will have an opportunity to respond within a 2-minute limit. And they will take turns answering first according to the format. So, John, we're going to let you go first. Your opening statement, if you would, please, 2 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. I'm a very, very lucky person. I got to grow up here in Arvada. I've been an Arvada resident my whole life, and I'm now raising my children here in Arvada as well. I also own a small business in this community and have for 40 years. And when I look back, the success that I've achieved is largely based around where I grew up. I grew up in a safe community, a community with great parks and outdoor recreational opportunities, and a place with great economic prospects. And all of these things allowed me to become the success that I've become. I'm running for Arvada mayor so that my children and your children can have the same success I've had. They get the same environment at which to reach their full potential. But it's even more than that. The children who are not even here yet, I would like them to also have the same opportunities that I've had. So those are the reasons I'm running for mayor. I look forward to this election this fall, and I can't wait to speak to each and every one of you as I see you in public. Thank you.
All right, John, thank you very much. Lauren, your opening statement, please, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I appreciate being here this evening. I'm Lauren Simpson. I'm your councilwoman for Arvada District 2, which is East Arvada. When I was first elected in 2019, I didn't know what to expect. But what happened was it became the best 4 years of my life. The ability to help people, to help solve problems in my local community, it turned out to have more purpose and reward than anything I've ever done, which is why I'm now running to be your mayor. I want to be a part of helping solve problems for our future. I believe Arvada is a little bit of a generational precipice right now, if you will. We are a community that has a lot of people who have been here a very long time, but we're also a community that has a lot of newcomers. How do we balance that? How do we meet the needs of residents who are here, no matter what their background may be? And how do we prepare for the future? I'm a mom. I have a first grader at home, and she's the love of my life. And real quick, happy anniversary to my husband. Today is our 15th wedding anniversary. And so that's a huge part of what I'm doing is I love this city. I'm here, I'm committed to it, and I want to bring people together. The reason I first ran for office is simply that politics is really toxic right now. But my background, my training is in international diplomacy. I believe in bringing people together, even when issues are hard. I believe in listening, I believe in respect, and I believe in finding common solutions. And when we do that, we find a lot more in common than we knew we had. And that's why I'm running to be your mayor today, and that's what I will do if elected. Thank you.
All right, Lauren, thank you. And it brings us now to our questions. There are 5 questions in total. Each of you will have an opportunity to respond, 2-minute responses each, and we will rotate the order that you respond. And Lauren, you will get the first question. And that question is, what do you believe is Arvada's most urgent challenge, and what steps would you take to address it? 2 minutes.
All right, so this is a difficult one because we have a few different competing priorities, and frankly, they're all very interrelated. And so bear with me when I answer this because it's going to sound like I'm mentioning multiple issues, but in reality, they're all very intersectional. And so we have the affordable housing crisis, the ability for people who don't make 6 figures a year, who are auto mechanics, teachers, hairdressers, Costco workers, to be able to have housing that is stable and clean and safe for themselves, for their families. So that's number 1. Number 2 is homelessness, because we see so many people right now being displaced, especially during the pandemic, is when this was particularly chronic. People who are displaced, who are already on the edge, falling off. How do we get them off the edge? How do we get them back into housing before they become what we know as the chronically homeless, which are those who have fentanyl, methamphetamine, those kinds of addictions because they've been on the street for a long period of time. And so those are the 2 major things that I see right now working together in tandem to really face our city. Homelessness, and I'm sure this will probably come up later, but this has been a significant issue nationally, not just to Arvada, not just to the Front Range, but nationally. And it is an issue that we have to approach with care and with solutions. And we have to approach it with a housing strategy that doesn't just house people and say, good luck, but we need to approach it with whatever their unique needs might be, whether it's trauma therapy, job placement, education, addiction, mental health, wrap around these services to create an environment where they are able to succeed, where they're able to move forward, and then provide those housing options that keeps them stable and keeps them moving up the ladder, because that's the missing piece right now, is moving up the ladder. Thank you.
All right, Lauren, thank you. John, your response to the same question, Arvada's most pressing problem, and your ideas for remedying that problem.
Thank you. So I believe Arvada's most pressing problem is continuing to be able to deliver core services that our residents expect to the high level that we have always done. And particularly, I see the biggest challenge with that to be our road maintenance work. We have benefited from a 10-year period of ever-increasing tax revenue collections with low inflation. We now have the opposite. We have very high inflation and likely to for a very long time, as well as flat sales tax collections. We are just meeting inflation. And so within that financial model, we do not have the room to do everything like we used to do. And I believe our biggest challenge is going to be facing what are our core responsibilities, how do we deliver those services that the residents expect to the highest level before we expend money on things that are not our core services. And I believe that will be our biggest challenge in the next 3-4 years to put the city on a pathway where we can perform our responsibilities.
All right, John, thank you. Next question, and you will have the opportunity to respond first to this question, and it deals with homelessness. According to the 2022 Arvada Community Survey, when asked about issues important to them, 64% of residents rated the issue of homelessness as their top priority. So the question is, how do you plan as mayor to address homelessness in Arvada?
The homelessness in Arvada is not just an Arvada problem, it's really a regional problem. But we feel it like everyone else does. And I believe we need to take several approaches to help with the homeless problem within our area. Number one, we need to be good neighbors and help those who are able to be helped and who we can help. We also need to collaborate with our county, our state, and our surrounding municipalities to have a coordinated response to homelessness and not have a bunch of layers of duplication. I believe those are very important things to do. But I think most importantly, and the question reflects it, that most citizens say this is an important topic. The reason they think it's an important topic is most of them have been negatively affected in one way or another by homelessness. And I think it's important that we both try to help people who are homeless, but that we also equally try to protect our residents from the bad effects of homelessness. So I will, when elected mayor, I will encourage us to adopt policies, procedures, that minimize the negative effects of homelessness while we try to be good neighbors and help those homeless individuals who would like to be helped, and who that we can help connect with things that do help them.
Thank you, John. And Lauren, you've touched on this already with some specifics, but again, the question as mayor, how would you deal with the problem of homelessness in the city of Arvada?
Thank you. So this is a very difficult issue. As I like to say, when you have 100 homeless people, you will have 100 unique solutions. To Mr. Marriott's point, there are a lot of negative impacts of homelessness, both to the individuals and to our community. I know this firsthand. Mr. Marriott's heard before. My father suffered from mental health issues, quite extreme ones. He was in and out of hospital starting when I was 9. And he became homeless when I was 15 years old. He was gone for 3 years and we didn't know where he was. It was a very difficult time. And I share this story not because I'm looking for sympathy, I'm not. I'm rather looking to show empathy because I understand the impacts that this issue has on the families. I understand what it's like to be the child who doesn't know where their father is. And so it is a uniquely human issue. It is an issue where you have individuals, now yes, some are just not good members of society, but quite a few, even a majority I dare say, are people who have true illnesses, whether they are addiction, which is an illness, whether they are mental health, in the case of my father, who was a Harvard-educated surgeon, I will add. It can happen to anyone. And so with these parameters, how do we do it? We provide the housing, we provide the wraparound services. In the case of my father, we were able to get him housed, we were able to get medicine brought to him, and I myself dealt with caseworkers for years. It's extraordinarily difficult, and I'm not going to pretend that it's not. But by partnering with our nonprofits, with our county, with our state partners, and working together with those services to house people, to stabilize them, that is the most important thing we can do to begin to tackle this problem, because the majority of people in Arvada who are homeless are native Arvadans. Thank you.
Our next question is a follow-on, more data from the community survey, and Lauren, you will answer first this time. And in that same survey, 69% of respondents said it is important to promote affordable housing in Arvada. So what should Arvada do to increase the availability of affordable housing?
So you have touched on one of my pet issues. Thank you very much. Affordable housing is a huge issue that is affecting nationally and regionally, and of course here in Arvada. It's no secret that we are an amazing place to live. Arvada rocks, and apologies for the informality, but Arvada rocks. And people have discovered that fact. And so how do we make sure that we have the diversity of the housing stock that is necessary for our residents who, again, like I mentioned earlier, who are hairdressers, who work at Costco, who are auto mechanics? How do they have the option to live here, to work here, to make their life here, to send their kids to our great schools and do all the things that we love to do and be a part of this community? I believe that that is a fundamental thing that we need as a city to do, because that helps our local employers have a workforce that fulfills services that we as residents all want and need, and it provides opportunity to people who are good members of the society to be a part of this amazing community. I have been a huge part of creating a housing task force, of preserving or approving new more than 700 unique units of attainable housing. Those are not going to be Section 8. I know that there's always this little bit of a misunderstanding. Rather, these are units that they look like any other unit, but they are what we call AMI adjusted, annual area median income adjusted. So those units are going to be for people who maybe make $60,000 a year, $65,000 a year. They have a degree, they have a good job, they just don't make six figures. But we all know that those are important people as a part of this community and that we want them to be a part of this community. I have been dedicated to doing that. I have helped create 2 unique projects to do that, and I'm committed to helping meet more needs along those lines as your mayor.
Thank you, Lauren. And now, John, the question to you. As mayor, how would you increase the availability of affordable housing stock in the city of Arvada?
So affordable housing is, again, a regional problem, not just an Arvada problem. If we look across the metro area, housing affordability touches us all in the incorporated parts as well as unincorporated parts of the counties. And so what can a mayor do about that? Well, a couple things. Again, I believe that it's very important that mayors are able to and do cooperate regionally with surrounding agencies so that we can help have a coordinated response to things like housing affordability. Arvada's actually done quite a good job of subsidized housing. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 7,000 subsidized housing units in the city of Arvada. Somewhere between 15 and 20% of all the housing units are that of one form or another. We also additionally have a lot in the pipeline. We have had developers bring to us over 700 new units of subsidized housing in one form or another that we have approved through our land use approval process. But here's the reality. The reality is housing affordability is a supply problem. And it's not a supply of subsidized housing problem. It's a supply of housing problem. We can do really 2 things about that. One is, in our own house, we need to take a look at streamlining our approval process that would allow us to approve projects quicker and help it reduce development costs, which can help the supply. Additionally, we need to be advocating at the state legislature for construction defects legislation reform. And as mayor, those are the 2 things that I will absolutely be doing.
Thank you, John. And now you will take this question first, and this has to do with crime. The League of Women Voters in their research has determined that crime is top of mind for a lot of your constituents, both of you. And while the majority of residents seem to have favorable views of the police department, 64% rated crime as one of the top issues important to them. So the question is, what would you do as mayor to address those concerns?
Get a couple things. This crime problem, like many problems we face, is a regional problem, not just a city of Arvada problem. We have had a dramatic increase in crime. I myself this summer was a victim of crime when my truck was stolen from right out in front of my house here in Old Town. It's a pretty tragic thing when that happens to somebody. It was not so much for me, but for a lot of people, that's their way to get the kids to school or get to work or get to the places they need to be. And I think we shouldn't minimize the impact that this type of crime has on us. So what do we do about it? So one, I think we have to be committed to keeping our police force, all our sworn positions filled, that we do not allow ourselves to be down on officers. Secondly, we have to train our officers to the highest standards that exist. The best trained officers can be the most efficient and best at addressing crime. We also need to equip our officers with everything that it takes for them to do their jobs to the highest level possible. But further from that, the mayor needs to work collaboratively within the region to work with the legislature and others about appropriate sentencing for people who commit crimes. The person who stole my truck, this was not the first truck he stole. Wasn't even the first truck he stole that week. And if he were somewhere getting a well-deserved timeout, my truck and others would not have been stolen. And I think that's one thing a mayor can actually do, is to work within the system to help reform what we currently have now, which has allowed this explosion of crime that we have seen over the last few years.
Thank you, John. Lauren, your plan of action for addressing crime in the city of Lakewood, or of Arvada, excuse me.
It's all good. So Absolutely, this has been a significant issue. I could say that my district, District 2, along with Mr. Marriott's district, District 3, are probably the most heavily impacted by crime in our city. I represent Eastern Arvada, he represents Southern Arvada, so we both know this issue extremely well. There are so many different factors that feed into this, from jurisdictional hopping, as I call it, because there are 9 different jurisdictions that intersect in one neighborhood of my district, and it makes it very easy for career criminals to hop in and out of jurisdictions and very difficult to track. So I agree with Mr. Marriott's point about interjurisdictional cooperation. This is something that I plan to be very aggressive on, and I know he would as well. And so with that, there are other things that we can do. I also agree that we need to fully staff our police force and give them any resource necessary to be able to effectively do their jobs. I'm very proud to say that the Arvada police force is one of the most effective, not just in the city, or sorry, not just in the state, but in the nation. We have very high requirements of our officers. We have a very intensive academy, and we require ongoing training. And with that, I support those programs, but I also believe that there are additional resources that we can provide to them that the officers themselves are not the ones to be providing. Arvada, within the past couple of years, has launched our co-responder program. We have 2 caseworkers who are professional social workers who go out with officers, much like Denver Star. And they have had tremendous results de-escalating situations when it's a mental health crisis-related situation. I would like to see this program expanded. Moreover, I would like to see us conducting proactive outreach to vulnerable communities, because a good number of our petty crime, not our career crime like routine car thieves, but our petty crime is often done by people experiencing distress. Thank you.
All right, our last question deals with special districts, and the League in their research has discovered that many metro special districts in Jefferson County have engaged in a wide variety of abuses. Lauren, you will answer first. From saddling residents with excessive taxes and debt to subverting the ability of residents to participate in governance of the district. So if elected, what would you do to regulate metro districts to avoid these kinds of abuses?
So this is a very difficult issue because metro districts, when done correctly, can be wonderful tools for financing development. There are many neighborhoods in Arvada that would not exist without the metro district, simply because the infrastructure would have been too difficult to implement. And so this is not a tool we should abolish. Rather, it is one, to the point of the question, that we should be very cognizant of. When I have had a new metro district come to me in my time on council, I have been very thoughtful in terms of what is going to be the taxation rate. How many mills are you asking for? What services, et cetera? Is that truly necessary? Arvada truly doesn't have that much land left to develop. Most of the metro districts that'll be coming towards us, to us in the future, will be those that are probably much smaller in scale as opposed to a Candelas or a Layden Rock. And those two are, probably prime examples of one done extremely well and one done not, because roughly about the same size, one is significantly more affordable in terms of taxation than the other, and far better run, I'll just put it to it. And so knowing that, we have to be partners with our development partners in order to be able to regulate, in order to set parameters that are healthy and safeguard the interests of the future residents, because we can't just allow residents who move in the future to be saddled with unreasonable burdens. And it's our job as the city council, even if those residents are not here yet, it's our job to be able to enforce their interests and protect their interests even in advance of their getting here. And so working with our development partners, that's what I'm going to do.
All right, thank you, Lauren. John, the potential to regulate special districts to avoid abuses.
Well, so I guess the first thing I would ask is if there are instances where there are metro districts that are acting poorly, that the League of Women Voters or whoever has a problem should certainly take that up. But I don't believe that I have seen that in my time on council. I also further say that We have absolutely zero ability to regulate metro districts. Metro districts are a special district that we are not the lords of. We do not get to tell them what to do. The state legislature is actually in charge of regulating metro districts. We approve metro districts and their service plans. And I think that's the moment at which we have something to say about metro districts. And my view of and my experience with metro districts here in Arvada has been that they have been wholly appropriate. They have produced housing in places that would not be produced otherwise. And that housing has been able to pay its way in the public infrastructure via their metro districts. And a great example is the Haskins Station Metro District that's over around 58th and Ward Road. They contributed to this regionally significant traffic signal improvement, intersection improvement at 52nd and Ward Road. Those improvements wouldn't happen but for the metro districts. So the metro districts do some good. I believe residents who choose to purchase in a metro district are adequately informed of what it means to purchase in a metro district. And I certainly will be examining, as I always have, each and every metro district that comes towards us. But at this point, I would disagree that there's abuse going on in Arvada or that there's a problem in Arvada. I believe we've acted appropriately and will continue to do so in the future.
And that brings us to closing comments for our mayoral candidates. John will speak first. You have 2 minutes for your closing remarks, your closing comments, if you would.
Great. Well, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you to the League for having us here and creating this forum for us to operate in. At the conclusion of this election, the Arvada City Council is going to go from one of the more experienced city councils around to one of the least experienced. It's absolute guaranteed that we are going to have 4 of the 7 members of City Council who will have 2 years experience or less. It's also very likely that it will be 5 of the 7, and possible that it may be 6 of the 7 members of City Council that will have 2 years experience or less. My 10 years experience of working closely with and learning from Mayor Mark Williams will serve me well in helping this group become a functional city council. That's the mayor's #1 job, is to make sure that the council functions well together, appropriately addresses the things that come before us. It's not the mayor's job to make sure different issues come out a different way, but to make sure that the group can function well. I will be able to do that job. I've got lots of experience to do that. I have got to study with one of the best for a decade. And so when I am your mayor, I will be best positioned to help this very, very inexperienced city council become experienced and become effective right away. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Lauren, your closing remarks, if you would.
All right. To give some clarity to Mr. Marriott's comments, we will have 2 new council members no matter what, in the at-large and in the District 2 seats. I'm currently the District 2 representative, but I'm not allowed to run concurrently, so I must not run for District 2 so that I may be able to run for mayor. So there will be 2 new members no matter what, and Councilmember Mormon, who I see here this evening, and Councilmember Smith were both elected in 2021. So those are the 4 with 2 years or less experience he's referring to. Only if I'm not elected mayor will there be 5. Make no mistake. I don't believe that's very likely. I'm going to push back gently on my good friend there. Mr. Marriott was reelected 2 years ago. He gets to remain in his seat no matter what. And so if voters are concerned about experience, then they should vote for me, because then they get to keep the experience on the council. Gotcha. All right. So with that, I will say that my background is in diplomacy. I believe in bringing people together. This is something I referenced earlier. It's something that I've been trained to do for a couple of decades now. I know how to work with people from all different stripes, whether they are the far left, the far right, anywhere in between. I know how to talk to people. I know how to listen to people. I know how to find collaborative solutions that bring results. And it's exactly what I'm trained to do. There's too much toxicity in politics today. We need fewer fighters, we need more diplomats, and that's why I'm here. It's why I ran for council in the first place, and it's frankly why I love this job. Mr. Marriott's correct. We have one of the most highly functioning councils in the entire region. We respect each other, we treat each other with dignity, and to Mr. Marriott's point, Mark Williams, our current mayor, always makes sure that every council member has the opportunity to speak. He always calls on people. He always makes sure everyone's voice is heard and that we're treated with respect. And as your mayor, you have my solemn promise that that is what I will do as well.
Lauren Simpson, John Marriott, your candidates for mayor in the city of Arvada. Thank you both for stepping up and agreeing to be candidates and for participating in our forum. Thank you very much. This is the election forum for the at-large position in the city of Arvada. All residents will have an opportunity to vote for the at-large position. We have 3 candidates for the at-large council position. They are Sharon Davis, Kathleen Kennedy, and Bob Loveridge. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then there will be a series of questions that I will propose, and each of you will have 2 minutes per response, if you would please. So let's begin with opening statements, and I think that Sharon, you will go first. Your opening statement, 2 minutes, if you please.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity to participate in the forum. I am Sharon Davis, and I am running for Arvada City Council at large. This is a seat that I've aspired to for quite a long time, at least 2 decades since I've been in Arvada. I have been on many of the committees, the council-appointed committees. I've worked with city staff on a myriad of projects. I'm really very excited to serve you and the community. I've been knocking doors and doing some listening, and I have found out what your concerns are, and I want to bring those forward. I have over 25 years of local government experience, and I want to bring some of that experience to Arvada so that we can make it the best place to live, work, and play. Thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to your vote.
Thank you, Sharon. And now, Kathleen, your opening statement, please.
To begin, I also would like to thank the Jeffco League of Women Voters in the city of Arvada for hosting this very important event. So I am Kathleen Kennedy, and I'm running for Arvada City Council at large. This means that I will be representing all of Arvada as your new council member. I've lived in Arvada for almost 30 years, and I've been married to my wonderful husband for almost a little over 19 years. Myself and my husband have several businesses that are located here in Arvada, but we operate those all throughout Colorado. I'm a realtor here in the state of Colorado as well. We do run a construction and remodel company that operates here in Arvada, but we run that all throughout Colorado, for which I do flips, much like you would see on HGTV. I also do client remodels, build garages, do landscapes, that sort of thing. Before becoming a realtor, I held numerous positions in the software industry with IBM. I built and managed a successful training organization within IBM. After that, I transferred to software sales within IBM, establishing and managing business accounts for our IBM business partners. So why City Council? 2009, I became a full-time realtor, and I got my start in construction. In these capacities, I've been involved in city processes such as permitting and zoning, and experienced issues in the numerous changes that we have seen in our community. Lately, I've seen some changes that are concerning to me as a resident of Arvada, as a business owner, and as a realtor. I'm beginning to see homeless folks that are filtering into people's backyards. As you can imagine, that makes it very difficult for both buyers and sellers as they're trying to navigate their sales. And as we're all aware that the building of high-density properties here is changing the nature of our community. These are some of the reasons that I chose to run for City Council. Finally, I want to give back to my community as well. I have a wide range of knowledge, excellent leadership skills, and management skills that will be fundamental in how I lead our community with your best interest in mind.
Thank you, Kathleen. Now, Bob, your opening statement, if you will.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I'm grateful to be here tonight, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for the hard work they've put into putting this together. I know they've done a yeoman's work. I am a native of Arvada. I grew up here. I was educated here. I raised my family here. I've had my business here, which I started a year out of high school. I've been involved with the community for most of my adult life. During high school, where I started getting involved with giving of service was when I started teaching the blind to ski. Then as I did many other things. I've come along, did volunteer probation officer. I was on Board of Adjustments here in the city. And then I was elected to the Apex Park and Rec Board, where we brought to you a few little projects, like about 100 ball fields, the Indian Tree Golf Club, some pickleball courts, and a little project called the Apex Center. And then I was elected, and there was quite a few others that we did at that time. And I also, at that time, when I came onto the board, we had a 30% in the budget. 30% of the budget was user fees, and 70% was tax dollars. When I left the board, we were reverse of that, 70% user fees, 30% tax dollars. So where we got many more people involved. I've been elected to the fire board since, and I currently serve there. And one of them brought 2 new stations, and I'm very proud of the STAR program, which I helped start. Chief and I have been talking about it for 8 years. I'm looking forward to being a stable new, leader within the council. And that's one of the reasons I felt the need to run for city council. Thank you.
All right, Bob, thank you. And that takes us now to our questions. There are 5 questions in total. Each of you will have an opportunity to respond, 2 minutes each response, and we will rotate the order in which you will go first. Kathleen, you will begin. And the first question is, what do you believe is Arvada's most urgent challenge, and what steps would you take to address it? 2 minutes, if you would.
Thank you for that. So I believe that our most urgent challenge right now is homelessness. As I mentioned, I'm beginning as a realtor to see homeless folks that are beginning to kind of filter into people's backyards. So that is something that I think we really need to address very quickly. And I really believe that as a city of Arvada, we have an opportunity here to do an amazing thing. I believe that homelessness is not at that juncture yet that you would see in Denver and some other places. So we can be proactive instead of reactive. I think that we need to provide, wraparound services for the homeless and not, I think the STAR program is a fantastic program to start with, but I think we can wrap around those services for the homeless here and solve that issue in Arvada. I would like to see this as something that would be a shining example to the rest of Colorado and actually to other states in the United States as well as what we could do. I believe that is the number one issue that we need to handle right away.
All right, thank you very much, Kathleen. Bob, the rotation goes to you. The questioning in Arvada's most pressing problem and your ideas for remedying that problem.
Okay, thank you. As I look out on our streets right now, and I'm very aware that we have more firefighters on the streets than we do police officers, and that's disturbing to me. Fortunately, the fire department is fully staffed. We have the numbers that we need. We are not losing people to other departments. But right now, the police department is down 40 officers. And as I've visited with some of the officers in the city, it's a very concerning thing to me when I hear them say, we've got to prioritize our calls. And there's many times we just can't get to them all. They're overworked. It's a real concern to me. Now, one of the questions I've been asked before, should we do away with the requirement of a 4-year degree? I don't think that we really want to do away with requirements of that nature because I think it helps us bring a better quality of personnel to our staff and the police officers' team. But there's perhaps some other ways we can look at of what makes up that, such as Warren Tech has a 2-year criminal justice program that kids can go through during high school. Then Red Rocks has a 2-year criminal justice program. There's 4 years that I think that would be a great step in helping bring many more officers on. I think we've got a super great police department. And there should be plenty of reasons for people to want to be here and serve this great community. It's a terrific opportunity for an officer to come here. And I think that we just need to be a little creative in ways we get them here.
Thank you, Bob. Sharon, Question to you now, Arvada's most urgent problem and your ideas for addressing it.
Sure, thank you. This is definitely a three-legged stool with the homeless, the lack of safety officers, but also we have to think about housing affordability and making sure that everyone who lives in Arvada can afford to live here. I mean, as our aging community, we are starting to age out of our homes, but can our children and our grandchildren be raising families here in Arvada? Housing affordability is very big. Some of the folks that are homeless, through no fault of their own, lost their stable housing through rent increases, or they couldn't pay taxes, or maybe they were a health scare away from making ends meet and they lost their stable homes. So we have to think about how can we make Arvada's housing just affordable for the workaday people so that a police officer can come here. Teachers, people who make very good livings as nurses and the such, that cannot afford a $650,000 home, which is the median price of a home in Arvada. So we need to look at maybe changing some of our housing stock as we build homes and mix in some of those affordable homes, or homes that are affordable to the missing middle class, so that we can have a community where everybody feels welcome and is welcome.
Thank you, Sharon. It may not surprise the three of you to learn that our next question has to do with homelessness. We've already touched on it to some degree, but now we're asking for more specifics. Bobby, you will answer first. The question is, according to the 2022 Arvada Community Survey, when asked about issues important to them, 64% of residents rated the issue of homelessness their top priority. So the question is, how do you plan specifically to address homelessness in Arvada if you were to become mayor?
Thank you. I will again begin with the STAR program, which I helped bring on, that we started this past January with the Arvada Fire Department. It is a nondescript van with a paramedic on there with more mental health training, and also a licensed clinician to help deal with the mental health issues. And as we all know, a good portion of the homelessness relates to mental health and also drug addictions. That program that we have has been out visiting with our homeless people and working with them. They'll take them food, they'll visit with them, and they're developing that relationship of trust to where then they will start realizing, hey, I do need some help. And they are there for them when they are needing help. I saw a text that was given to our clinician a few weeks ago, and the guy said, hey, dude, you really helped me the other day. You saved my life. And that's what I want to see more of, is the ability to help these people, get them back on their feet. And I want to see them become self-sufficient and self-reliant on themselves. And I relate back to a cousin of mine who went to Vietnam. He was on the helicopters there. He was the guy that sat on the outside and shot away as they landed. He was shot down 4 times, and 4 times he was the only survivor. And I can't imagine what he went through. But when he returned, he didn't fare well. He ended up with substance abuse and out on the streets for many years, but he got himself clean. And when I was talking to him about it, he was so proud, and he kind of puffed up his chest, and he says, and I've got a job. I'm a crossing guard. And I realized how important those types of things are for us in our lives.
Thank you, Bob. Sharon, the question to you now. 64% of the residents in this community rate homelessness as a very high priority, and they would like to know what you as mayor would do to help alleviate the problem.
Thank you for vaulting me to mayor. That's very exciting. So the unhoused folks in our community have been painted with a very broad brushstroke. And the brushstroke is that they are drug addicts and they have mental health issues. But as I said before, some of those folks lost their stable homes through no fault of their own. And so they're living in their cars. They're living near Swanson Elementary so their kids can go to school. They are people just like you and I who are maybe one paycheck or one catastrophic healthcare issue away from losing stable homes. So let's really think about this in a reasonable and compassionate way. There are folks certainly that do have substance abuse and mental health issues. We as Arvada need to scale those kinds of programs that we offer, that are offered reasonably and in a way that makes sense. We need to expand our partnership with our surrounding communities and work with places like the Community Table, Jeffco Health Services, so that we can be the place where we are not necessarily the human services provider, but it's a place to go and find some programs that are appropriate for the need of the community, this community. I would like to congratulate our municipal judge in starting the One Small Step program, where people who have small crimes are rehabilitated, taught some skills, and then are able to find jobs. And those are the kinds of programs that Arvada should be vaulting forward with the Starvada program. And I think that we are going to tackle it, but it is not a silver bullet. It's going to be what can we do to help these people and how can we live with it.
Let me apologize for promoting you to a position you're not running for, but you might put that in your pocket for the day you do run for mayor. There was a very good answer, so thank you. This is the at-large race, of course. So Kathleen, your response to that question, the question of how to deal with a problem that many in this community deal as a top priority, 64% according to the league's data, the problem of homelessness and how you would alleviate it.
Thank you for that. So I see this, as I mentioned before, as we in Arvada, we have an opportunity here to be proactive about what we do instead of just reactive. And I believe that here in Arvada, we can come up with the ways to do full wraparound services for these folks. You bring up an excellent point about not everybody they have mental health issues. Not everyone is, on drugs and alcohol and all of those kinds of things. So in providing those full wraparound services, I think that, if we can partner with folks like the Rising Church, and, they provide an awesome opportunity they provide breakfast for these folks. They provide a place for, the homeless to be able to come in and shower. They provide a place for them to wash their clothes. But once that happens, then those folks are back out on the streets. So I believe that if we have the right mix of services here, full wraparound services, those folks can go from maybe doing their breakfast in the morning and go to counseling sessions. I think that there are, those things can be partitioned, for the needs of those specific people. I also believe that we can provide those programs, workforce development programs. I fully believe that most people want to be able to work. They want to be able to have that good feeling about themselves, as you pointed out, Bob, as well. They want to have those good feelings about, I want to be a contributing member to society. So if we provide those workforce development and community services, I think we can really help there. The services for handling mental health issues and handling drug addiction and all those, we can go further with those things as well. I see that we can handle this within our city. And like I said, I believe that we have an opportunity here to be a shining example to the city of Denver, to all of Colorado, and to other communities around the United States.
Thank you, Kathleen. Our next question has to do with affordable housing. Sharon, you will be first in the order. The league says that in the same survey, this was the community survey done in Arvada in 2022, 69% of respondents said it is important to promote affordable housing in Arvada. And the question is, what should Arvada do to increase the availability of affordable housing in this community? And Sharon, you have the first opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Yes. And again, I like to think of this as housing affordability. Affordable housing has kind of a dark spot on it. People immediately go to thinking it's Section 8 housing. This is housing for folks who are have professions, starting out, just graduated from school. They don't necessarily want to live in their parents' basement, but they want to have a great place to live. So how can we do that? We need to mix in our housing stock. Right now in Arvada, we are encouraged to build luxury housing. So that's luxury apartments, luxury homes, and we are not building stock for the regular workaday folks. We need to think about how can we get our teachers into a house. So while we're building and planning these large developments, let's maybe sprinkle in some homes that are affordable to the working middle class. So I've noticed in just walking around some of our newer communities that you can make a ranch house look just like some of the larger homes next to it that are on a grade with a walkout basement. The ranch home just doesn't have a walkout basement. There are ways that we can mix in our home, have those home stocks out there. And then we really need to think about how we can build more condos and allow for those kinds of things to be built in the city. Housing density does not have to be a bad thing. I lived in condos in Lakewood, and it was beautiful and well planned. We can do the same thing here in Arvada.
Kathleen, same question to you. Top of mind item for many voters, how to increase the availability of affordable housing in Arvada.
Okay, this is a biggie for me. I'm a realtor here in the state of Colorado, so I deal with this quite a bit. And a lot of the folks that I work with are regular folks. They're firefighters, they're policemen, they're teachers, all of those kinds of things. And so they struggle trying to find appropriate places to work. So I've worked a lot with the Denver Affordable Housing Program. And I have to say that program, there are bumps in there and things that don't work all that well. But I have to say that program works pretty well. And so the gist of that is whenever there is a new project going in, that you provide about 30% of the properties there for affordable housing. So it mixes in, it sprinkles in, if you will, those properties that can be affordable to those folks. Now, the other part of that is to make those properties affordable to the next person as well. So when they sell those properties, they have to sell according to how they purchase those properties. You can't just go off and resell those at true market value, but they're going to be at the proper market value so that program works for the next person coming in. I think that we can take better advantage of that program here in Arvada. The idea was to have that program. Certainly the mayor of Denver was asking the other communities if they would sign on to the Denver Affordable Housing Program and provide that. And so some of the communities have been a little slower than others to take up that charge. So I would like to see Arvada take up that charge a little bit more as we kind of move into that. We really need to provide housing for everyone who wants to live here. I live in Arvada. We all live in Arvada. There's reasons we live here. People love it here, and they want to come here and join us, and we want to make that happen. So I think that we can take advantage a little bit more of that Denver Affordable Housing Program and work that into what we're doing here for development.
Thank you, Kathleen. Bob, the question to you, the challenge of increasing affordable housing in the city of Arvada.
Thank you. So affordable housing has really been a very big concern of many people as we've seen our values rise so much. I'd question, could I afford my house today? But I've lived in it quite a few years too. The good news on the affordable housing market, we actually are seeing the values come down a little bit in this area. And in the last year, rental rates did come down a whole 0.9%. It's down a little, not much, but it is down. So the trend is showing some relief, perhaps. But more than that, we need to be looking at how we are able to build things. Right now, a huge concern I have is we're not building condominiums. Though, because of the legislation that is out there right now, it is impossible for our builders to be building condominiums because they know they will be sued. Builders cannot even get insurance to build these condominiums, so we're not seeing them being built. We have a number of projects going on right now here in Arvada that are apartments. And wouldn't it be nice if they were condominiums? Because that's where so many people are able to get their first property to buy. And we need to look at that and encourage our legislators to look closer at that. The other thing I would love to take a closer look at is our building and development fees. They keep rising. Now, I know the costs of the city are going up, but we need to make sure that we're in there with affordable fees to help build these properties appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Our next question deals with the topic of crime, and Kathleen, you will answer first in our order. While a majority of residents seem to have favorable views of the police department, 64% rated crime as one of the top issues important to them. So the question is, what would you do to address their concerns?
Okay, thank you for that. So also, as I run a construction company, the thing that we're beginning to see in Arvada, I am seeing, is an increase in crime on the job sites that we have. We have to be really careful. We have to hire people to watch those things because materials are being taken. People's vehicles are being broken into. Things are being stolen. Catalytic converters are being cut off of cars and things like that. So I think that we need to have I believe that our police department needs to have more teeth in what they do. If somebody does a crime, they need to be able to. They need to go to jail. First of all, there needs to be the proper working for those people. They need to pay for what they do. They need to pay for that crime. There needs to be some teeth in what happens here. So that is my answer. I think that we need to work more with the police department, and there needs to be better teeth in what happens for the folks who commit the crimes here.
Thank you, Kathleen. Bob, the same question to you. 64% of the people in your community see crime as a major concern. Your ideas for dealing with it?
Okay. I think you also said that they think we've got a great police department.
Yes, they did.
Yes,
That's
and
correct.
I will agree with that. I've had the opportunity of working closely with our police department, and I will say we have a Peyton Manning of police chiefs here. Chief Brady is a super great chief, and our department, the officers that I visit with are just awesome. And a really cool thing that I think to be proud of here in our community is our police and our fire actually like one another. They get along. Now that, you may say, well, that should be usual, but it's not. It's a very uncommon thing. You go to some cities and they just hate one another. So I'm grateful for that. When it comes to safety, again, we need to get fully staffed. That is a very important thing. Now, I know it's a typical problem that we have throughout most businesses. We can't find the personnel. But I think we can find a way of attracting people that really would love to serve this community in a very honorable job. Talking about having teeth in the system, that would be great, but we are dealing with a lot of laws the legislatures have put in place, such as car theft. You don't go to jail, you get a ticket. Yep. And I find that a shame. Even pedophiles fall into that category. Again, it's going to take some work with our legislatures to get tougher laws if that will help us. Again, we got to be diligent as neighbors, help one another. That will help our crime problem too, and we can do that through our community risk, or not community risk, the community resilience department, which is basically the old emergency preparedness and building stronger neighborhoods.
Thank you, Bob. Sharon, Bob is correct. Most residents in Arvada see the police department favorably, through a favorable lens. However, 64% of them feel that crime is a top concern. So your ideas for dealing with crime in Arvada?
Absolutely. So as I've knocked thousands of doors across the city, that is one of the top of mind issues as crime and safety. So one of the things that Arvada Police have that's a wonderful program is Neighbors Connected. And in that, the critical resilience team comes out and provides training for neighbors for situational awareness, what to look for, how to prevent crimes or at least reduce them. Some of the things that still go on in Arvada, which is surprising to me, are folks leaving their cars unlocked at night. So a lot of petty crime is happening, or crime of convenience, as the police officers call it. So really taking ownership of our own safety. The APD does think that safety does begin in the community, and so having that Neighbors Connected program up and running and everybody engaged is very important. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have dinner with everybody, but it is nice to be able to tap your neighbor, say hello, and let them know a few things about you. Are you going on vacation? Are you having someone stay at your house? Those types of things, really getting involved in your neighbors. Also, I've been working on this for several years as a park ranger program within vibrant communities and neighborhoods. Park rangers can be, they interact with the community in a different way, and they can help relieve crime within parks, and that way the police officers and law enforcement can go about the business of protecting the community. So there are several ways that we can make our community safer. Some of it is that we have to take responsibility.
Thank you, Sharon. Our next question deals with special districts, and Bob, you will have the opportunity to answer first. The League has determined in its research that many metro special districts in Jefferson County have engaged in a wide variety of abuses, from saddling residents with excessive taxes and debt to subverting the ability of residents to participate in governance of the district. So, if elected, what would you do to regulate metro districts, if you could, to avoid these kind of abuses?
Okay, so they're not special districts, they're metro districts.
Special, okay, in your verbiage, yes, that will cut both ways, that's
Yes.
correct.
Yeah, because when I think of special districts, I think of Apex Park and Rec and the fire district. So metro districts are a much different animal in many ways, although they can operate in similar fashion. Metro districts has become a tool to help be able to fund a lot of developments, and it has become a tool to try to make that price tag more affordable. It's a tough one, you know. How do we get all the infrastructure done? How do we get your roads, your sewer, your water, your utilities all in place, and still keep the price tag of that house down? And that's been a tool to be able to be used. Regulating it, and I understand the abuses. I don't think we've had any abuses here in this city with them, but they certainly have to be watched and make sure that you have the proper board representation there as best as you can.
Okay, and just for clarification, the League has given it a blanket term of metro special districts, so.
Okay, and they are technically a special district.
Okay, all right.
But I don't like being thrown into that when
I
I have so much
understand.
service over there.
I understand.
And I think we've been running a tight ship.
Thank you, Bob. So Sharon, your opportunity, would you like the question again?
Sure.
The League has determined that these metro special districts, some of them have engaged in a wide variety of abuses, from saddling residents with excessive taxes and debt to subverting the ability of residents to participate in governance of the district. So if elected, what would you do to regulate the districts to avoid these kinds of abuses?
Again, it's going to be difficult to regulate these districts, but it would be interesting for council to take a look at some of the bylaws of these metro districts and how long they are going to expand or span. Some of these metro districts go into 30 years, which is a basic mortgage. And residents feel hamstrung with this, especially when they want to make changes, or they're to the point where they may be losing their stable home, and it's just because the special district charges might be $1,000 a month. And so it's definitely a three-headed monster that we as council would have to agree upon and approach, and then really regulate or review some of these metro districts and how they operate, because everyone is different. Every time I go to a different metro district, it's very different. And I do know that at the state level, they're trying to pass some legislative language to control or regulate these special districts.
Kathleen, same question to you. Regulating special districts or putting more controls on them?
So I think that education is the key. And one of the things that I am encouraged to see are residents of Arvada beginning to get together and forming coalitions and organizations that are looking at these kinds of things. I think people, as you know, their tolerance level has gotten to the point where they're not so tolerant anymore for just, accepting the money, the new taxes and all of those things that come their way. So, for example, I'm very encouraged to see that the McIntyre Neighbors United group has risen up, and they're, that is in unincorporated Jeffco, but those things do affect Arvada as well, because we have all the roads and everything. Arvada has those roads, so I'm encouraged by those folks that are doing their homework, and they are rising up, and they are looking at all of the information that they need to be aware of. There are other groups as well that are rising up as there are things that are really changing, in Arvada for these kinds of special districts and all this special taxing and all that kind of thing. So I really believe that community involvement and community education is key to making those things happen. And as those people, get involved more with City Council, I think that we can almost attack this as a group, as a united group.
Thank you, Kathleen. And now we have arrived at closing comments for the three of you. Each of you will have 2 minutes, and Sharon, you have the opportunity to close first.
Sure. Well, thank you. I'm very excited to be able to represent you on City Council. It's been my pleasure to be involved in this. I have had such a wonderful time going door to door and learning about what your concerns and compliments, quite frankly, are for the city of Arvada. I'm listening, I'm hearing, and I want to take action on your concerns. I am here for you, and I can't wait to represent you. I'm Sharon Davis, and I'm running for Arvada City Council at large.
Kathleen, you'll speak next.
All right, thank you very much. Just like you, I am a resident of Arvada. The issues that affect you and your families also affect me and my family. As a council member, I will be your citizen advocate, your voice, your fiduciary, to address your concerns and maintain the great things that we have here in Arvada. I believe that we all want the same thing. And it doesn't matter whether you're young or old. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or not so much rich. It doesn't matter whether you have a home or whether you rent. We all want the same things. And the things that we want are safety. We want security. We want quality of life. We want to feel that our local municipality cares about our needs as residents. We want to be able to ride our bikes, walk the paths, take our kids for a walk, our grandkids for a walk, enjoy all the beautiful parks that we have here without the fear of being assaulted or killed. We want to be able to walk out our front door without fear that our cars are going to be carjacked in our driveways. We want to be able to, go to the grocery store and not worry that our catalytic converters are going to be cut off of our cars. We want to be able to drive around in our community and not wait for an inordinate amount of time sitting at a light. We don't want things like a huge warehouse planted right by homes that would affect our property values, increase pollution in our neighborhoods. And it's just, frankly, not the right place for those things to be. We want quality of life in our community for us and for those who are joining our community. There are reasons we live here. We love it, and others want to join us too. As your new council member, I pledge to you that I will be your citizen advocate, your voice, your fiduciary. I will be your employee, not your employer. Thank you very much. I'm Kathleen Kennedy, running for Arvada City Council at large.
Thank you, Kathleen. And now, Bob, your closing comments to close out this portion of our forum.
Thank you. Well, I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for the opportunity of running for the at-large seat. I have been involved with working with people and finding solutions for almost my entire life. When I was in high school, I was teaching skiing, and we had a blind skier program come available, and I thought, that sounds kind of cool. I'll give it a try. My first student was a 12-year-old boy, blind at birth, couldn't touch his knees, let alone his toes. He was failing all of his grades. And he was a challenge. I was not able to teach him the way that we were taught to teach the blind to ski. What I had to do was grab him, bear hug him, and take him down in between my skis for several years. I then started thinking, how could I do this better? And I got a pole, and he was able to hold on to the pole next to me, and I could help him down. Before he graduated out of the program, he was able to touch his toes, and he was passing his grades. Now that's what brings pure enjoyment to me, is being able to figure out ways we can get things done, and perhaps it's a little different. And that's how I've been throughout everything I've done in this community. I've tried to look at things perhaps a little differently. When we wanted a rec center, we looked a little bit bigger and did it a little bit differently and created the Apex Center. Fire board, we knew we had a problem with the rising amount of mental health calls, and we weren't doing a good job at responding to those at all. It was completely wrong. And we have now been able to develop a program that is touching people's lives and saving people's lives. And that's been my whole life. I care about people, and I want things done properly, and perhaps it may be looking at things differently. I hope I've earned your vote, and vote November 7th, if not before. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks to all of you for participating as candidates and for being part of our forum tonight. So these are your candidates for Council at Large: Sharon Davis, Kathleen Kennedy, and Bob Loveridge. We have one council position open in District 2. Council District 2 is generally located in the southeastern portion of Arvada. We have two candidates running for the District 2 position, Shauna Ambrose and Michael Griffith. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes to respond to a series of questions that I will ask, and then we will move on to closing comments as well. So, Shauna, you will speak first tonight, your opening statement, if you would.
Great, thank you. And thanks to the League of Women Voters for all that you do to provide information to the voters. And thank you for watching this, for being informed about making your choices. You're the bedrock of democracy. My name is Shauna Ambrose, and I'm running for Arvada District 2 for City Council. And I moved to Arvada 10 years ago after my military service, and it was a great choice for my family. My kids were 6 and 9 years old then, and I didn't realize how great Arvada would be until my daughter had a major mental health crisis. And she had to have residential treatment, and I thought the best thing for her would be if we moved. However, when she got out of treatment, she was like, "Mom, don't worry, I've got this, we don't need to move." And she was totally right. All of her friends, teachers, social workers, our neighbors embraced our family with kindness, and that's why I want to run for City Council, to give back that kindness and care that Arvada has shown our family. I'm somebody who was born homeless and somebody who has gone through battered and abused child, and I was able to get through it because of smart public policy and policymakers and voters who voted for those policymakers and representatives who actually cared about their community, so that my kids have never had to grow up with that cycle of violence or poverty. And so that's also what I would like to do, is to be somebody with data-driven policy ideas that will actually care for our community. I have 20 years of nonprofit experience, I have union experience, and military experience that has been endorsed by former Representative Ed Perlmutter, Representative Breonna Tattone, and Representative Lindsay Doherty, and State Senator Lisa Cutter, among many more. And I really want to make a change in Arvada and be there for your family as Arvada has been for my family. So I encourage you to check out my website. It's shaunaforarvada.com. That's SHAWNA for Arvada.com.
Shauna, thank you very much. Michael, your opening statement, 2 minutes, if you would.
Thank you very much, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for having us. This is a great opportunity. I'm grateful to be here. I'd also like to thank my wife, who's at home with our 3 kids and our 1-month-old infant. Tonight is actually our wedding anniversary, so as you can imagine, I'm a little bit in the doghouse, but she fully supports me, and I am grateful to be here. We moved to Arvada many, many years ago. We've been longtime members of the community, and we love our life here. We've built a beautiful place with all of our kids having been born in Arvada. Life hasn't always been easy for me. I've had many struggles. But to be honest, I'm here to talk about my experience. I'm here to talk about my qualifications and my service to the city. I'm a licensed landscape architect and urban designer. I've had a very long career in a big engineering firm where I'm currently a senior partner, and I work on projects that are really people-focused placemaking infrastructure projects, so roadways, plazas, mixed-use developments, and affordable housing. I currently chair the Arvada Planning Commission, where I've volunteered for the last 7 years. I also chair the Board of Adjustment. In my volunteer service, I'm also on the Board of Directors for the Old Town Arvada BID, that's the Business Improvement District, and I chair their placemaking committee. In addition to all of that, I teach. I'm a professor at the University of Colorado. I teach the pro-practice of urban design and planning to graduate level students. Some of them actually are working in Arvada for design firms. With all that being said, some of the projects and things that I've volunteered on in the city, some of the projects includes the South Sloan's Lake project, which is 20% affordable housing and lots of open space, also has the Alamo Draft House. I've also led the 16th Street Mall project, McGregor Square, and several other projects in the metro area. On Planning Commission, I've approved the new Land Development Code, which I also was on the committee for the writing of that. So really what I'd like to tell voters is you need somebody that understands what to do on day one and understands the job. I sit here 2 days a month, and I sit here several times a year on the Board of Adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And that brings us to a series of 5 questions. Each of you will have 2 minutes to respond to each question, and we will rotate the order of who responds first. And Michael, in our order, you will begin first tonight. And our opening question is, what do you see as Arvada's most pressing or urgent problem, and how would you approach it?
Thank you. Very good question. And this is great because depending on who you ask, they'll tell you all kinds of different things are the biggest issue. But whenever you're asked in a very specific environment, let's say a survey, for example, Arvada puts out regular surveys. We get a top answer, and the top answer is congestion, traffic, and infrastructure problems and maintenance. So this is the key issue that people are worried about. The other thing that you'll hear a lot at the doors is people are concerned about growth and development, outpacing infrastructure. So I think it's important to understand these two things are interrelated, but the biggest issue we have is funding the infrastructure that we need to support the growth and development that we've already invested in. There's not a lot of growth and development left to push in Arvada. We're mostly built out. So at this point, we really have to figure out what those infrastructure challenges are, make sure people aren't sitting in traffic for all of their day and evening trying to get where they're going, and understand that the development capacity for Arvada is nearly reached. So we've got to figure out how to fix our roads. That's the biggest issue.
All right, thank you, Matt. Michael, shut up. The same question for you, the most pressing problem in Arvada or the most urgent problem, and how you would approach it.
Yeah, this is a really great question, and when I am talking to my neighbors and folks in the community, the biggest issue is that they've got no place to live, and it seems like all of the development that we have is luxury housing or housing that you have to qualify for. When I was talking to someone who works at SCL Health who manages nurse recruitment, she said that nurses making $120,000 a year cannot find a place to afford in Arvada, but there seems to be a lot of development, so where are the homes for the ordinary person? Someone on my street, she cannot afford to retire in Arvada, and she comes from one of the original legacy families of celery farmers. Her granddaughter is an 8th generation Arvadan, and there is no place for her to live in Arvada. So what I would like to do is not just expand existing development or just update the infrastructure, but make sure it's smart and it is for existing Arvadans. Our infrastructure can be updated and align with the Inflation Reduction Act so that the infrastructure upgrades are actually ready for our future of constant climate changes and disasters and reduce usage of emissions and other water resources. And for affordable housing, we can't just keep on building housing and expect it to solve the problem. We have to have the right type of housing that will help Arvada. And for example, if we had a 55-plus community, then seniors could right-size to this community, which would then free up the single family home housing supply, which would then free up others' housing supply so seniors and students and working families actually can live in Arvada and afford Arvada. And that's the biggest problem that I hear today when talking to community members.
Thank you, Shauna, and perhaps not surprisingly, our next question deals with housing, and you will answer first. And this is information from the 2022 Arvada Community Survey. When asked about issues important to them, 64% of residents rated the issue of homelessness their top priority. And the question is, how do you plan to address homelessness in Arvada? I know you've already mentioned some specifics,
things,
but
yeah.
please, yes, how would you address generally homelessness in the city?
Yes, I think homelessness is a very personal issue to me because I was born homeless, and also a quarter of the homeless population are veterans, and veterans are the hardest to house of that homeless population. I've already been working with the county and the Veterans Administration Hospital so that the County Housing Authority from Jefferson County can feel more comfortable in taking on veteran vouchers because they feel like the VA will be there to help them. The majority of homeless folks in Arvada are Arvadans, and they need leaders who are responsive, proactive, and care, and to say, look, we have a lot of competing priorities, we have infrastructure upgrades, we have all of these other things going on, but I, as your leader, am not going to fail you as an Arvadan. I will work with nonprofits, municipal sources, state laws, federal laws. There's all kinds of resources to help Arvadans get back on their feet into homes and working. And most people who are homeless are also working. They deserve to be able to live in Arvada. We need to do things about the existing housing supply, but the most important thing is strong leadership to bring people together and to be able to look at existing policies of things that are already out there to be able to help people. We don't have to come up with all of the solutions, but we need to be able to work with other people from other agencies to work together to provide solutions for people who are homeless in Arvada. Criminalizing the homeless is not an answer. Giving them social services to help Arvadans be housed in Arvada, live and work in Arvada, be successful in Arvada is the most important thing that we can do for homeless folks who are living in Arvada today. I know it's a lot of market forces, there's gentrification, there's all of these issues that are nationwide that are very difficult, but we are the leaders of this city. We can do something here for the people who are living here to make sure that someone is responding and helping people get back into homes, like the One Small Step program that Judge Katie has, or the other nonprofit programs that have helped hundreds of Arvadans off the streets and back into homes.
Thank you, Shauna. Michael, your vision for improving the problems with homelessness in Arvada.
Thank you very much. So this problem affects a number of people in our city. Obviously, it affects the people that are sleeping outside. That's really hard, and that's a problem. And it's something that we should really think deeply about and be empathetic whenever we think about it, right? So we're not making decisions as if the population of homeless individuals aren't real people, because they are. Now, on the other hand, we need to think about the way that we administer laws in our city. This is not an area of lawlessness, and we do have rules. No one is allowed to occupy the right-of-way indefinitely, the sidewalk in front of a shop, a section of a roadway, anywhere where somebody wants to set up indefinitely. That's a problem. It hurts business, it hurts safety, and it creates all sorts of sanitary issues. So we have to look at this from two lenses. One is that we have to enforce our laws. We have to make sure that we're not hurting the business environment, and we're clearing the right-of-way on a regular basis. But we're also looking for options for wraparound services to help people in need. And a lot of folks that are out there on the street are in need. Not all of them will accept it, the help that we have to offer, but the ones that do are the important folks to communicate with. This is a regional issue too, so we have to understand that whatever we do in our borders, it's going to have an effect, a ripple effect, to deal with this issue. So we want to have those regional partnerships, of which I have many. I've developed many projects that have affordable housing components. While I was on Planning Commission, actually recently, we actually passed a project that has 30% AMI housing, which is geared toward people that are at risk of becoming homeless. That particular project has wraparound services built in and job placement just down the street, hopefully. So there's a lot of options that we can look at. I think it's key to put people in office that understand how to navigate these tough challenges and that are fine addressing them for what they are, people and law. Thank you.
So, Michael, you too have touched on some elements in our next question. You answer first. in our rotation. And that question is, in the same survey, the community survey, 69% of respondents said it is important, in fact, to promote affordable housing in Arvada. So what should Arvada do to increase the availability of affordable housing?
Thank you very much. And this is a great part two to my intro on what is the biggest issue in the city. So there is a limited amount of developable land left in Arvada. So we have an opportunity to address affordability by looking at the types of products that we're going to build over the next 15 years, 20 years. We're really close to build out. And I think the things that we can do, we're already actually doing quite a bit. Throughout Arvada, there's about 45,000 homes total. Of those homes, 18% are currently subsidized in some way. So we're talking about 18% of the city right now has some form of subsidy, federal, state, local, other agencies subsidy. So I think we need to look at this from a data standpoint and say, what's our goal? How do we measure success? What does it mean for the community at large? And how do we finance these things and attract folks that want to do business here, developers that actually are going to be able to produce those products? And then make sure the message is clear to the neighborhoods these products are going to go into. The project that I mentioned a minute ago, right on Marshall and 52nd, the neighbors of the Columbine neighborhood are very upset about that. They feel left behind. So I think it's important that we do a couple of things. One, we understand the finance. Two, we understand the metrics of success and we define them with data. And then the other thing is we message to the community that we do have a plan and that all the developments that are addressing affordability aren't smushed to one part of the city, but there are options that are spread throughout. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Shauna, the same question to you, the potential to increase the availability of affordable housing.
Yes, I think one of the things we need to do as city council is instruct our legislative advocate to really do a lot about the construction defect law, because that is what is holding back many developers and builders from building homes that are entry-level homes. The construction defect law allows people who occupy new homes to sue builders, and that has caused a lot of opportunism amongst lawyers to go into new housing developments and sue the company. And so builders are saying, we're not building any more of those kinds of supply that Colorado desperately needs. Colorado only has like 3 to 5% of its housing supply as condominiums, and most other surrounding states have 20%. And a condo is usually an entry-level housing, or it's housing for a senior to be able to right-size into. So this is something that our municipality should be advocating strongly for so that developers have more room to build. But more importantly, we need to be very concerned about the type of development that goes in. As I spoke earlier, development that helps the existing supply and reducing the pressures on things that already are there to make sure that there is movement within the existing supply for people to be able to come in or right size or move on instead of staying stagnant with everybody just holding on to everything because it is too expensive right now. So the right kind of development, not development that makes developers the most money at market rate prices, but making sure that we have programs that can subsidize developers so that there is housing for the average person to be able to afford a home in Arvada. That's what I want to do, is have a plan that can actually help regular Arvadans work and live in Arvada. Right now, only 20% of Arvadans live and work in Arvada, and we need more places for people to be able to move in that address the existing housing supply issues.
Thank you, Shauna. And you are up next in the rotation.
Okay.
For this question, we're going to move on to crime.
Okay.
While a majority of residents seem to have favorable views of the police department, 64% rated crime as one of the top issues most important to them. So the question is, what would you do to address those concerns? 2 minutes.
You know, I feel a lot for our police department because Arvada, uniquely amongst other municipalities, has had 2 fallen officers in recent years. And I, serving in the military, have had the same type of dynamic where you lose colleagues and you're expected to provide safety and a very stressful job. Additionally, the Arvada Police Department is down by 40 police officers. Their workload is too high. We need to be able to ease the burden off of our police officers by instituting public safety that our citizens can rise up to. So this means things like smart road design. Because we don't have as many police on patrol, we need to find ways to make people slow down, especially in District 2, where Sheridan and Wadsworth are highways running through our neighborhoods. We need to have citizen traffic investigations investigation teams to be able to collect evidence. We need to be able to boost public safety when it comes to petty crimes such as porch pirates and car thefts. We need more people monitoring social media. Not every job requires a badge and a gun, and we should reserve our police for the most serious of incidents, ongoing and active incidents. And I want to say that our police force is doing a great job. They already have dispatchers going out into the community to talk to communities about what's going on and what can the police department do. Because they know, our police department knows, just like you, that petty crime is on the rise. I myself had my brother's truck stolen right in front of my house at 72nd and Carr. And the police need to be able to address these crimes, and they need the space to be able to have their detectives work on it, but we as the public need to also be more aware and harden our homes against crime and ease the workload off of our police force.
Thank you, Shauna. Michael, your ideas for mitigating crime in the city of Arvada.
Thank you very much. So we have a very unique police force in Arvada. It's a special thing. Actually, I'm very proud of it. I've stood by the police since moving here when I learned how much work they put into their recruitment efforts and how much work they put into the de-escalation training for their officers. It's quite amazing. So every police officer in the city has a college degree. We're one of the only cities in the state that does that, and we're one of the few in the nation. That's pretty amazing. We are down 45 officers from what we should have in the city. And there's a couple of reasons that I think are leading to that. One is the national narrative, and it's a tough time to be a police officer in general. The other thing is that we have had some casualties. We've lost some police officers over the last 2 years, and that hurts morale in addition to the fact that the local or the national narrative has been so tough. But what's interesting is if you speak to the police officers, and I've spoken to many of them, I've had several conversations with Police Chief Ed Brady, and he says, City Council makes sure that we have budget. They make sure we have the best equipment in the region, and our pay is competitive. And so I asked him, I said, Ed, why don't you have full ranks? Why do we need these 45 officers? And he said, well, if you look at our neighboring municipalities, they have the same issue. So it's not a pay problem, it's not an equipment problem, and it's not a support problem because they do have City Council support. So he said, what we need is we need to understand better how we can be more efficient and be more effective. So there are some citizen volunteer programs that have been put in place, and those have been particularly effective. Actually, I'm a part of one. I'm a part of what's called Dads on Duty. So my kindergartner, I have a kid now that's in school for the first time. I go to that school on a couple days a month, and I walk around the perimeter of the school. Sounds simple. People on the street, people in the community can affect the quality of life and the safety within that community. First responders need to partner with community members, and I would support that on council.
All right, Michael, thank you. We're going to move on to our next question. And Michael, you will answer first, and this deals with special districts. The League of Women Voters has determined in its research that many metro special districts in Jefferson County have engaged in a wide variety of abuses, from saddling residents with excessive taxes and debts to subverting the ability of residents to participate in governance of the district. The question is, if elected, what would you do to regulate metro districts, if anything, to avoid these kinds of abuses?
Okay, so let's separate that question out into two parts. One, the type of regulation that we might see and that might be appropriate, and the other one is recognizing that there are certain communities within our city that we would not have, neighborhoods that would not exist if we didn't have special districts. So let's make sure that we understand that. So that's fine. I'm a consensus builder. I do this for a living. We have to figure out what the trade-off is. I think if a metro district is forcing you to have some sort of landscape that you don't want and that you're having to waste water on, I think that's ridiculous. And we should have a conversation about conservation oversight with metro districts. I think if a metro district is charging you what they said they would when you bought your property for the amenities that you enjoy, I think you have that option. You freely purchase that house. And a lot of people will tell you, you know what, I bought my property in this particular neighborhood because I liked access to nice benches and fixtures and amenities and all the things that are paid for by a metro district. And that's why you have the extra tax. That's why you have the extra money. So on city council, what I would do is look closely at the requirements that these metro districts are pushing on residents and make sure that they are very clear in all of their writing and literature what those requirements are going to be for anybody that might be buying a home or property or investing in these areas. So I think that's the important piece, right? So understanding the value, understanding the limitations, and making sure that we don't eliminate the possibility for metro districts at all, because I think that they can be really additive to communities if they're well regulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Shauna, the question to you. Metro special districts in Jefferson County engaging in perceived abuses, what would you do, if anything, to regulate them if you were, in fact, given office?
Well, there's not actually a lot that City Council can do as a regulatory body on special districts. City Council can approve the plans as they come up, and City Council can review the tax documents that are filed to make sure that the special district is not over-promising and what it is offering to communities versus what it can actually make. And I think that metro districts can actually create a lot of safety problems. Every one of us remembers what it was like with the Marshall Fire that nobody could have predicted happening before. And so when you have a special district, you have to be working with each of the different special districts that are along the exposed Arvadan border. About a third of the city is exposed to wildfire risk. And you have a bunch of different districts with different rules about, well, what do we do with vegetation? How does the fire respond to this? And what do we do with making sure that our water is available should there be a fire? And so there's all kinds of things that can happen. So making sure that our special districts are brought within code for safety is a huge problem that City Council should be tackling dead on to make sure that people who live in these districts are safe and have all of the things that they need. Another issue with special districts is that oftentimes people don't even really realize that they're in a special district or what that means. So there's low participation when people get elected to the special district board. They don't know what these fees go, and then they come to the city and they say, you've got to fix this problem, and then we have to go, well, that's your special district. So we really need to be working with citizens to make sure that they know who their special district is, what the powers they can and can't do, and also with all the things that are coming because of climate disasters and climate resiliency, get the special districts to conform to those safety standards.
Thank you. And now to closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes to close. And Shauna, you have the opportunity to go first. Your closing comments, if you please.
Well, thanks again to the League of Women Voters and everyone here, and to everybody watching this for watching this debate and seeing what our answers are and the difference are in candidates. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time to educate yourself, the differences between us. I want to say that my platform is about affordable housing, public safety, and making sure that we are ready for the future. One of the major things that I would like to do is that we as a municipality can access funds from the Environmental Protection Agency to form a climate plan. And then once we have that climate plan, we can access the Inflation Reduction Act dollars. And this is so important because that's millions of dollars on the table for Arvada. And it's not just for things like, oh, we can change out the turf or use less water. This is infrastructure improvement money. Arvada is behind in deferred development and capital improvement projects by $191 million. And when that infrastructure gets upgraded, it's not just going to be upgraded because, oh, it's time for an upgrade. It needs to be upgraded to adapt to the modern conditions that we're living in, which includes a lot of climate fluctuation, a lot of climate disasters. We need to know that these essential services will be able to survive such disasters. So when you are looking at who to vote for, you can look to me to have the experience of bringing people together, to be able to know who is the smartest person about this project to be able to make it happen, and work with people, because being on city council is about being with people, and it's a relationship building type of job to make sure that you have people who want to be able to work together, just because we are better together as a community. So thank you so much for taking the time again. Once again, my name is Shauna Ambrose, and I'm asking for your vote this election season, and my website is shaunaforarvada.com.
Thank you, Shauna. Michael, your closing comments, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you, League, for putting this event on. And I will thank my wife again, because I am out on the anniversary night. Thank you, everybody that's watching, and absolutely thank you for tuning in and listening to us tell you about our platforms, tell you about what differentiates us and what makes me uniquely qualified to lead the city in District 2 as your representative. Let's be really clear. How many of you have driven to work and gotten caught in stoplights that just never seem to end? The signal timing doesn't seem to be right. How many of you have replaced tires because the potholes swallowed your wheel? How often have you felt concerned about going out late at night in an urban area in Arvada or Old Town because you don't know who's going to be around the corner and it just doesn't feel as safe as it did 10 years ago? I think it's important to elect people that are effective. I think it's important to elect people that know what they're doing. And I think it's important to elect people with demonstrated experience and time given to their communities. I've been here for a long time. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue helping the city in any capacity that I can. I truly believe that my best capacity at this point would be serving in District 2 as your representative, and I would love to earn your support and your vote. And I'd love you to visit my website, michaelforarvada.com, and you can look at the hundreds of folks that have listed me as a supporter. You know, I'm not a politician, and I don't really align myself strongly with any of the parties. I am here to help find better outcomes for Arvadans and people that live in communities. And that's what's important to me. If that's important to you, I look forward to gaining your vote, your trust, and your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thanks to both of you for having the courage to step up as candidates, and thank you for participating in our forum tonight. Have your wife call me, Michael. I'll work on your past. Okay. The City Council candidates for District 2, Shauna Ambrose and Michael Griffin.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have one council seat open in District 4. Council District 4, generally located in the northwestern portion of Arvada. We have two candidates running for District 4, Bob Pfeiffer and Jessica Finsky. Unfortunately, while all candidates were invited to attend, Jessica was not able to be here today. So Bob is the Lone Ranger for this particular segment of our forum, and we will have 2 minutes for him to make an opening statement. 2 minutes, Bob, to respond to each question then that will following the opening statement, and then, of course, there will be closing comments as well. So, Bob, if you will, your opening statement, please.
Well, thank you, Mark, and thanks to the League of Women Voters of having this event tonight for all the candidates. I've been on City Council for 12 years. I was one of the at-large council members, and I was having a conversation a little bit earlier today about the importance of institutional knowledge and continuity of the experience of 12 years. Your first 4 years, you're kind of getting your feet wet. Your next 4 years, you're kind of like, okay, I know a little bit of a little bit of that. And then you finally hit your last, and you're like, okay, I'm good. I got this down. And then it ends. This time, I feel like I can still build on that. And in the northwestern part of Arvada, we still have a lot of issues out there that are new or a little bit different than the rest of the city. That's our last growth area, really, from a housing, single housing and development area. I mean, we'll do some density in the Old Town area, but at the end of the day, that's kind of the last of the growth area. We have different issues out in West and Northwest Arvada. That includes wildfire mitigation. We have traffic issues. We go in and out of the county. There's a form of metro districts, which is a different form of government that we are involved with, which the rest of the city doesn't necessarily have. So, there's still a lot of issues out there that I'm very educated on, and I feel like this is a good opportunity to continue that continuity of my experience and to give back to the community that I live with my 5-generation family. So I thought I'd put my name back in the hat.
All right, good for you, Bob. Now we have 5 questions, and you have 2 minutes for each response. And the first question deals with the most serious problem in Arvada. What do you see as Arvada's most urgent problem, and how would you deal with it?
One,
just one. The most urgent of all the problems, the most urgent problem.
Well, if I look at the city as a whole, I think the most urgent problem we have now is our unhoused and homeless. If I look at the holistic view, I think the city is on the right trajectory currently, and again, this is why I want the continuity of my tenure with the council, is that trajectory of that service to focus on the homeless and the unhoused and making sure we put the tools and the services we need to address that within our community while collaborating with other folks around our city and neighboring communities. So I hope that when elected, I will have an opportunity to continue to see those tools come to fruition for our citizens and hopefully make a little dent. I don't know if we can solve it, but if we can at least try to figure out a way to be innovative and provide a hand up for those that will take it, I think that we should try to seize that opportunity.
So this may not surprise you, but our next question has to do with homelessness. According to the 2022 Arvada Community Survey, when asked about the issues most important to them, the people in your community, 64% rated the issue of homelessness their very top priority. So again, even though you've already given us a few ideas, a few specifics, how do you plan to address homelessness in Arvada?
You know, I think it's difficult for council currently to prescribe an exact solution to it, because I don't think we can totally solve it, because I do believe there's two types of homeless in our community. There's what I would refer to as the invisible and the visible. The invisible are those that might have just recently become unhoused, or might have or on the verge of being unhoused. And I think we need to really focus on those, and those are the invisible folks that are having these challenges. And the visible homeless are sometimes our criminal element, and we have to deal with them a little bit differently. One of the immediate things I would like to do is reduce the amount of expenses we use on the criminal side of homeless, which we spend a lot of money on a very small group of people, and yet we have a small amount of money for Section 8 and other tools that we use that help a larger group of folks that could be on the verge of being unhoused. What I like to do is flip those dollar amounts and stop spending so much money and time on those that are just creating a quality of life issue for my community. So. And then also, I think when you talk about like what tools, I think the city's doing a great job where it's going. I think we're doing with the navigation center. We're trying to collaborate with the county. It's not probably where I want it to be. I wish the county stepped up a little bit more. But we are collaborating with our local communities, our like Lakewood and Wheat Ridge and others, to try to collaborate on solving it. Because if we start doing something here in the city, it may change the issue or push the issue into their community. So we really need to kind of look closely with our neighbors and try to solve this at a regional level.
Of course, you can't talk about homelessness without talking about affordable housing, which you just did. So, and not surprisingly, our next question deals with affordable housing. That's right. So in that very same survey, the community survey done in 2022, 69% of respondents, almost 7 out of 10, said it is important to promote affordable housing in Arvada. So the question is, what should Arvada do to increase the availability of affordable housing?
Yeah, you know, I've always appreciated where our council's talked about diversity in housing stock, and I think that is one thing, and I think we should continue that direction. But I also think that construction defects need to be addressed at the state level. I think that's the next thing to dislodge some of the affordability issue. I know some of the developers and builders are taking a leap of faith by selling forced sale condos, which is great, and we appreciate the risk that they're taking. But the state really needs to step up and solve this issue in the next session instead of getting into land use. So as far as what can the city do with affordability, I think we need to look innovatively with partnerships with the builders and developers and understand that there's a potential opportunity for us to lower maybe the cost of the house. I don't want to prescribe what that could look like. I'd rather us get around a table, discuss it, see what's there, and trust each other that we all want the same outcome. It's not always easy for industry and government to trust each other and come to the table, and I think we need to foster some of those communication to see if there's a way that we both can work together to solve this affordability issue. We have challenges around tap fees and other things that builders and folks will say that adds the cost, but there's unfortunately some necessary costs in running the business. I was going to say running the business, but running the city, like delivering of water. So I don't know how far we can cut on those kind of things, but there might be other options out there that we have very creative staff, and I think that the team here can really think of some new approaches with the industry and try to figure out how we can solve it, at least for our community.
Also hard to talk about homelessness and not talk about the problem of crime, which you have also touched on. Not to say that all crime stems from the homeless community, but there's a great deal of crime in our communities. It's regional, it's national, but it also afflicts the city of Arvada. And while a majority of residents seem to have favorable views of the police department in Arvada, 64% rated crime as one of the top issues most important to them, talking about all crime now. So what would you do to address those concerns?
You know, I strongly support our police department. I believe our police department has done a fantastic job in facing the narrative and the national narrative around law enforcement. I think we as a council need to continue to support those that put their life on the line every day for our community. And When we talk about crime, I think we need to invest in our police officers who in return invest in my community, and continue to, push for prosecution of those that impact the quality of life in Arvada. So is there a silver bullet around reducing crime? I don't think there is that we would need to add today. Our chief, I've been through 3 chief of police in my tenure, and every chief has done a better, I wouldn't say better, but they built on the other chief's foundation. And I think if we continue doing that innovative approach, I think we'll find ways to adapt to the needs of our community. And I'll say, like, crime's changing. Getting sworn officers is hard. There's a lot of people that don't want to do this job. But maybe we look at leveraging civilian police technicians a little bit differently. How do we increase the level of service? How do we, get more visibility? I think visibility can deter crime. I would think traffic enforcement can deter crime. We just need to keep doing kind of the core business of what our law enforcement does, but with compassion and with empathy and with understanding and embracing, inclusion and diversity. I think as long as our police department are hitting on those values, I think we can take at least a little knockdown of that issue.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to a topic I'm certain that you have touched on in your tenure, and that is special districts. The League of Women Voters in their research have discovered that many metro special districts in Jefferson County have engaged in a wide variety of abuses, in fact, from saddling residents with excessive taxes and debt to subverting the ability of residents to participate in governance of the district. So, if elected, what would you do, if anything, to regulate metro districts to avoid these kinds of abuses?
Is this for me? Did you guys pick this one for me? I think my peers know that I have a very passion around metro districts. Man, 2 minutes, Mark, that's tough. Look, I don't think they can be eliminated. I think growth needs to pay for itself. Metro District is a tool that has been empowered the City Council to enable, to help the growth of the community and let that community pay for itself. The issue, I believe, is that there needs to be additional state legislation involved that allows us to have better oversight of the metro districts when they are owned or ran by developers. When right now the statute says that only landowners can be on the board, well, that could be for 10, 15, 20 years until there is enough residents living in there to start taking over that board. But in that first 5, 10, 15 years, they're accruing debt with no accountability because they don't live there. They're not going to be long-term landowners. So what I've been trying to push with special interest groups has been, like the home builders and the realtors and stuff, is we need to get an at-large put on those boards, 1 or 2, where the city council can appoint either a city member or a council member or a community member to sit on that board to represent the future citizens of those metro districts to avoid some of those concerns you mentioned in that statement. So I think that is a solution to the metro districts. I think the city has done a fabulous job or a fantastic job in improving its ordinances within the state statute that puts more guardrails around metro districts, like subdividing. We're not allowed to subdivide metro districts. That was a mistake that we've dealt with. You're not allowed to accrue operating debt anymore. So we've done some things to improve future metro districts. I wouldn't get rid of them. I think they're good. They just need to be fine-tuned. So right. I think I stayed within 2 minutes.
Yes, very good. And we have some very avid clock watchers here, so far you've done very good. Okay. And now it's time for closing statements. That's another 2-minute opportunity for you here. So your closing remarks, if you would.
Well, I'm looking to the citizens of West Arvada to vote me into this office so I can continue to advocate for those that live out west. But it's also City Council members' obligation to represent all of the city. I might be elected within the district, but I also have to understand and appreciate and advocate for citywide issues. And I hope I have another opportunity to do that again and really advocate on some key issues that are unique to West Arvada, which is the wildland fire that we're concerned with from the Marshall Fire. I'd like to get that ironed out. I'd like to deal with some of the egress, ingress issues for Line Rock, dealing with evacuation. There's some key things that are out there that need an advocate who not only obviously lives out there, but also can understand the issue. I meet with the fire district, I meet with city planners, I've met with local citizens on all their issues around metro districts, fire, traffic, and I think I'm the best advocate for West Arvada, and I would appreciate your vote. You can call me anytime. My cell phone's all over the place, and you can visit and get more information from me at bobpfeiffer.com.
Thank you for running, thank you for serving, and thank you for being part of our forum tonight. We so appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
City Council candidates for District 4, Bob Pfeiffer and Jessica Finsky. Bob present tonight, Jessica Finsky unable to make it, and I will now officially gavel the forum into closure. This concludes the 2023 Arvada Candidate Forum. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for co-sponsoring this event. I know they join me in thanking the candidates for participating. We commend them for their interest in serving the public. We'd also like to thank the viewers for taking the time to learn all they can about the candidates. You can learn more about local candidates and issues at the League of Women Voters free online election voter guide at vote411.org. It will be available beginning the 9th of October. This interactive website provides voters the opportunity to compare candidates side by side for all races, along with pro arguments and con arguments on all ballot initiatives that will appear on their ballots. Election Day is November 7th. All active voters will be mailed a ballot the week of October 16th. For your convenience, there will be an outside ballot drop-off box at the main entrance to Arvada City Hall, located at 8101 Ralston Road. For more drop-off box locations, as well as the nearest polling center in Jefferson County, go online to jeffco.us/elections, or if you are in Adams County, go to adamscountycoelections.gov. If you choose to mail in your ballot, be sure it's mailed early enough to arrive no later than 7 p.m. on November 7th. To be safe, consider mailing it on or before October 30th. Voter service and polling centers open on October 30th. You can visit them to register to vote, update your registration, get a replacement ballot, and cast your vote all the way up through Election Day. Questions concerning registration and ballot mailings may be directed to the Jefferson County Clerk's Office at 303-271-8111 or the Adams County Clerk's Office at 720-523-6500. In closing, let's all remember that participation in local government by serving and/or voting is where we can express our collective values and protect and improve the quality of life for Arvada residents. So thank you all, and be sure to vote on the 7th of November. Thank you for watching.